All right, Mano Amigos, I have got a special interview for us today. It's going to be kind of a little bit different from what we've done. With each of these episodes, I've tried to get different amazing guitarists that are good at different things. So far, and in the order that I'm putting them, Todd Kearns was like an amazing starting, who had a huge hit song, a couple of them actually, with The Age of Electric. Continued on, now is performing with Slash, as well as a whole bunch of other bands, which is an amazing example of a Canadian, especially from a small town. He was saying he started out in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and now is living in, I believe it's Las Vegas. Anyways, that's one of them. Another one is we heard from Second Wax Mannequin from Hamilton. What's cool about him is he's still performing on an acoustic, a lot of the time on an acoustic guitar or on a classical guitar. There are tracks that sound like they've got a lot of heavy guitars in them. I know sometimes he does put even some effects on his acoustic guitar, so it could just be that. Really great stuff. He talked to us a bunch about different timing and how he integrated different timings based upon, all in the same thing. How his one bass note was in a certain time, and then he had the higher notes or higher strings on the guitar in a different time. Craziness. I hadn't even actually heard of that before. Next we heard from Gary Kane, a blues guitarist who is probably one of the fastest guitarists that I've seen perform, especially for that long. Sometimes, like rock guitarists will do a really fast and crazy solo, but then they go back to playing chords and singing along. Gary Kane, it's like, it's non-stop. You watch this performance and it's the whole time. You're just sitting in awe that someone can do all that for that long, sounding that amazing. Then it will be this podcast. In this podcast, I want to talk about a combination. So the guitarist that I'm gonna, it's not really an interview as much, although I have some stuff from this artist that I've talked with the band that I'm going to address. I also have some really cool stems from one of their tracks that we are going to look at. The band is Giraffes. They're from the United States, Massachusetts. And I don't know if they're still from there. That's, I think, where they were originally from. Giraffes has been, anytime that they've released a couple albums since I've been following them. This one is called Memory Lane. And this one is, I can't think of exactly the year, but when this one was released, and this is the one that we're going to look at a song off this one in particular. This one was number one on the Mano A Mano charts. And we're going to look at a song called At the Turf Field Behind My Parents' House in a little bit. I talked with the band about these covers. This is the album that Mano A Mano got into. This one is called More Skin with Milk Mouth. And I talked to the band about these covers. Each of these covers are kind of a collage that is representative of the tracks that are within them. So I'm not exactly sure how all this is representative of those tracks or what parts of this represent which tracks, but all of their albums have this kind of collage feel to them with the cover artwork. And when I asked them about this, they said that yes, this is influenced by the tracks and by the track titles. What's interesting about these guys, and will be with the next interview that I do, is a lot of this music is instrumental. So I found out about Giraffes when I was doing a Mano A Mano show about math rock. even though I've already recorded this interview, I talked next with Do Make Say Think. So the math rock episode was a follow-up to my post-rock episode. Post-rock, I found out actually about Do Make Say Think when I was making the Electrifying Adventures audio comic. I talked with I talked with Justin Small about this album a little bit in the podcast, but I couldn't find it right here to pull it up. This is a super hard to find vinyl of theirs called Besides, or B-Sides, that was only released I think he was saying that was only released in the UK. Anyway, this one took me forever to get. It's not in mint condition because I had to buy it used from somewhere online. That one was hard to get. These ones are also, this one actually you can probably still get. This one might be hard to get unless they've re-released it. One thing that's super cool, a lot of bands are doing this now if you buy vinyl. I think this one has it. Yeah, check out this vinyl. Super cool colors. The other one is more regular. It's a cool color, but I think it's just a blue vinyl there. But that one was super cool with all the different colors. We're going to analyze this. Oh, again, this guitarist, so I'm talking about Joseph Andreoli. He does a couple things. He combines the amazingness of some of the other guitarists, performance-wise. But then when I used to play, I used to kind of say that I wasn't necessarily the greatest guitar player, but I was more an effects player. And I feel like Joseph Andreoli is like what I was saying, but even better. Like, some of the stuff that he does is unbelievable. And I'll show you some of the stuff in there, but one of the key things that I think he focuses on and incorporates into their songs is the idea of looping. And it is so cool what he does. I've got a track kind of, I think they called it disintegrated into parts here that we can analyze and look at, as well as I've got a couple of the technology right here that he uses. I'm going to show, so there is an online video for one of their tracks, and it's called At the Turf Field Behind My Parents' House Live. And it is unbelievable. In the background, I've got it, if you're watching this, you can see in the background there is a little pedal there that I'm going to talk about first. And the looper pedal that I'm going to talk about is also in the video. It's got a nice set of his pedal board here. And he's got a whole ton of different cool pedals. The looper pedal is this big loop station right here. So first, I want to talk about this. This guy on the screen here, if you're watching along, is the Giraffes is two members. So Kenneth Topham is the other one who's performing on drums in this video. Behind Kenneth, now we're going to get to listening to this track At the Turf Field Behind My Parents' House Live. But what a lot of people say is that even in that live performance, it sounds way too perfect. Now, they're in a studio when they're recording this, so they could have recorded it a couple times. I'm sure if they perform it live, it's not as controlled. But even the vocals, some people say there's got to be lots of effects on the vocals. That pedal, so I've got one of those pedals here. I can't pull it too far because I don't have a really long cable attached to it. This is actually a vocal processor. I'm going to use it to kind of explain the idea of looping as well, because it also has looping attached. Now, the other pedal that I showed, so that is the Boss VE20, which is a vocal processor. What's cool about that is you can add harmonies to your voice digitally all through this pedal. So if I just turn on that, right now I should have a third harmony with my voice. You can add in more. You can make it sound like there's 10 of you singing. You can make it sound like there's 5 of you singing. You can do a whole bunch with this. And this is a third harmony. You can add a fifth harmony. You can add a third harmony lower. You can do a whole bunch of different things. So I bypassed that now. I've turned off, hopefully, the harmony, and I'm sounding a little bit more regular. The other pedal now, I would have set this one up and given a demonstration on this next pedal, but I just traded my Xbox for it, so I still don't know how to use it. The other pedal that is in that video is this loop station. It's called a loop station here. It's a Boss RC300 loop station right there. And I would say that this is probably the king of loop stations right now. When this is filmed. There might be one that just came out that's better, but this one is unbelievable. What's neat about it is on one bank you have got 1, 2, 3 different loop stations or loop pedals here. So you can set up to record your loop and play it. You can record another loop on a separate channel and play it with this loop. And then you could even go and record a third loop on the same channel and play it with all the other 3. Now, if you get to a certain part in the song and you don't want the middle loop anymore, you can stop just that loop, which is unbelievable about this pedal, and work in the volume controls and everything like that. Loop effects, so much stuff, and it's really complicated. One huge thing, so Wax Mannequin, Gary Kane, they all talked about timing as a key thing in their songs. This you need amazing timing for, and I'll show you why as I play with this loop pedal here, this smaller loop pedal. So all a loop pedal does, and I think I've got to turn on the harmony for this. So all a loop pedal does, right now I've got the loop pedal on. If I hit this once, it's going to record my voice. So actually for this, I'm going to put on some headphones just so I can hear what I'm looping. I'm going to record, let me take down my harmony a little bit here. Harmonica. Check. So for performing live, if you sometimes want some reverb on there. Actually, the reverb is so high. Let me turn down the reverb. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I've got my reverb way low. Now, the way that a loop pedal works is if you have a drum going on in the background and you hit record on this piece here, it's going to start to record what you're saying. And then as soon as you hit stop, so if you've got a guitar coming, it's going to start to record what you're saying. And then as soon as you hit stop, so if you've got a guitar coming, it's going to start to record what you're saying. That is playing, and it's looping. Then as soon as you hit stop, so if you've got a guitar coming, now if I want to record again on top of that, I can add more voice to it. And then as soon as you hit stop, so if you've got a guitar coming, it's going to start to record what you're saying. I can add more voice to it. And then as soon as you hit stop, so if you've got a guitar coming, it's going to start to record what you're saying. I can and this is the idea how a loop pedal works. Guitar coming, it's going to start to record what you're saying. I can and this is the idea how a loop pedal works. Guitar coming. So that is the idea here of. Whoops! I'm recording again. There we go. So that's the idea of how a loop pedal works. And what is amazing that Joseph Andreoli can do with this loop pedal is he can sound like about 3 or 4 guitarists all on stage in one. It takes a little bit to get going, which is why at the beginning their songs kind of build up and build towards the end, which is why it's key to watch kind of their whole song, because as it builds to the end, this keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you add to those loops. Unbelievable stuff, what these two guys are able to put together. So, what I'm going to do is, again, let me just show you these here. There is that bigger loop pedal, the RC300 being integrated into his kit. This thing also up here, this Eventide pedal, is amazing. I've wanted to get one of those. It's kind of, on some of the synths that I have, it like gradually pulls up the note when you switch between two different notes. It's very cool. As well as this allows you to bend the note and do some really cool things with all this. That is the guitar effects pedals that he's got going on there. And for the vocals, there in the background is that Boss VE20 that I'm sure they have on their vocals to give it that thicker, rich sound right there. So, again, Joseph Andreoli is not only amazing at playing, as we will hear and see, he's also amazing at integrating these effects and looping. And next week, when we get to Justin Small from another one of my favorite bands, Do Make Say Think, I feel like he also is similar to Joseph Andreoli, where he is really good at playing and also what effects he's using, but he uses the effects in a different way to set up atmospherics in a song. And so that's why I think these two, although they're close, it's a progression here, and he definitely has something different than what Joseph Andreoli has. Which is why I wanted to talk about both of these two artists here together. Now, let me see. We're going to jump into, let me just switch back here. And let's look at, this is that song. This is a live, not the live. We looked at that live version of the song at the turf field behind my parents' house. And now this is actually the recorded version. I believe this isn't all the tracks. Down here, if we look, this one here is just the cymbals. So if I hit play on this one here, we can kind of hear the cymbals there going through the whole thing. This one here is our first guitar, and if we notice here, it's already starting to play. Let's add this one in. So in this track, what starts out happening is they start with those cymbals. And what ends up coming in is this first loop. And he starts to record this loop. I believe he adds to it here. And he starts doing the up and down little bits. And then he adds in another loop here. So this is yet another guitar lick added to this loop. Remember, at any time, he can turn on and off these different loops that he's got going on. Up here, I'm going to stop these two loops for a second, because then he starts playing some chords. Meanwhile, Kenneth is starting to come in with a bit more drums. Well, maybe they start in the next few minutes here. But meanwhile, that loop is building up. Which is very cool. Now, another thing I want to point out in all this is, if you notice, these loops may have been recorded, they're actually definitely recorded because we're looking at them, on separate channels. I even believe that this guitar 2, if we just listen to guitar 2 here for a second, was recorded in 2 parts. If we just go right, it's just mainly that do, 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 do. Now they may be recorded on the same loop channel. Maybe that's what's happening. And the other way is that which I believe is the loop for that one, which is so cool. These like the way that they're panned almost makes me think that they were recorded separate and then panned that way, because I'm not 100% sure. And again, I haven't used the RC300, but I'm not exactly sure how you can set up panning within a track, which makes me think that this guitar 2 is actually 2 separate tracks mixed together. Now in the background we're starting to hear some vocals.
Turn on the television.
And if you hear that, what that's kind of sounds like is, oops, I switched off it here, but it could sound, I just switched to a different harmony now. It could sound like one of these harmonies from this Vocal VE20. Now, they might not have used the Vocal VE20 in the recording. What they might have done is recorded the vocals straight and then added the effects after. A lot of bands do that. The Vocal VE20, or sorry, the Boss VE20 vocal processor is more for a live performance. So if they wanted to copy that same vocal effect that they had on this recording, they may have gone to this vocal performer here. A lot of the time in a Giraffes song, there is not vocals. There may be a sample of some type of speaking or something like that, but there isn't necessarily a vocals. This one it has got some vocals, and if there are vocals, I find that they're often low in the mix. So let's jump here with the comeback in. We're going to start with guitar track 1. We'll keep the cymbals going. We'll add guitar 2. Still going here. If we look, here's some added claps and drums coming in just for this ending. Here's the chords. Let's have the vocals in here. Now, a key thing that we'll want to do is if we compare that, I'm going to see how far in I'm getting here. I don't want to show too much of their video, just for a couple reasons. I don't want this to, I'm sure it will get, it'll notice the copyright because we're playing the song, but I don't want this video to be taken down so we can still learn from it because of copyright infringement. But definitely these tracks are not my own. I don't at all suggest that these are my own. These are Giraffes tracks. I mainly wanted to just show that comparison between the live and the recorded of one guitarist. Now I'm going to link on our Mano A Mano site to, we're going to hear both of these in the podcast, but for this raw kind of analysis, of these two tracks and of this, the live version of the track versus the recorded version of the track. I'm going to post this video along with what we're doing. So if you do have want to check this out, this is an unbelievable performance, and you will see, in my opinion, one of the best performers at using a loop pedal that I've ever seen. As well as there may be some other people that use a loop pedal in a different way. We're definitely talking guitar and loop pedal here in this 5-part guitar series that we're going through, which we may end up continuing because this has been so much fun looking at all these different guitarists and kind of what each guitarist kind of adds to adds to what's going on. Now, I put out a request to interview either Joseph Andreoli or Kenneth Topham about Giraffes, and the guitar that is implemented in Giraffes. I don't know if it's in the interview with Todd Kearns. He talks a lot about he talks a little bit about the differences between American bands and Canadian bands, and how he moved down there because there's so many more opportunities. I find that a lot with radio interviews and these bands. A lot of Canadian bands are really open to doing some type of interview, and even though I would say Waterloo is growing and growing and growing, the Waterloo region, it's still smaller market, especially compared to a lot of these American towns. So it's still mainly Toronto, Vancouver. I feel like Montreal's got its own thing going on with Constellation Records up in Montreal. But it's mainly these 2 or 3 regions in Canada. Whereas the States have got so many, and they're just that much bigger. So a smaller region like the Waterloo region reaching out and wanting to do an interview with a band isn't as big of a draw. Whereas Todd Kearns, who's huge now, I mean, he's playing with Slash, which is like, Slash is probably one of the best guitar players ever. He still understands because he's from that small town in Canada, and he's gone through kind of the Canadian system with the Age of Electric. So it was awesome that he was able to get back and do an interview with us so we could learn more about implementing the guitar into, if we want to become a musician, or just understanding better how people get into this. So that is a bunch of the stuff that I wanted to show. Looping is such a cool thing. I feel like it's so hard to do, which is why there aren't as many bands that implement looping. There's one part where, in a past interview also, where I'm talking with Gary Kane. I don't know if it made it into the podcast. I can't remember. A lot of the time I talk with these artists for a long time and cut out some parts. And we talked about how with Robot Apocalypse we tried to incorporate some looping. Actually, it wasn't necessarily looping. It was some of the synth sequencers where it is on a certain loop. So a sequencer is kind of a drum loop that's happening, and you program in the step sequence. Anyways, we were playing to that, and naturally, as you're performing live as a band, you speed up and slow down. So something like this, where you're normally playing to a drummer who's keeping your time, either the Kenneth is either got to have some type of click track going, or in their headsets they've got to be kind of monitoring the loop and performing to the loop, because that loop is set now. Once you record that loop is going, and you need to perform at that same speed, otherwise you're going to go off time with the loops, which is why it's such a difficult thing to do. Yeah. Giraffes is the band that I've seen do it better than anybody. If you have another band out there who uses loops and loop pedals and can make some music that sounds as good as this, please let us know. If you're watching this, in the comments below. Otherwise, you can email Rob at radiowaterloo.ca. Let me know of these bands, because Giraffes, I was just doing a show. This was, I don't know, a couple years ago on math rock, and I was just Googling some math rock bands. Listen to Giraffes. They became an instant favorite of mine, and have now topped the Mano A Mano CKMS charts for the top releases of various years, as all these bands have that I've been featuring on this little guitar series that we've got going on here. So there it is, some amazing stuff. I'm going to jump into that track at the turf field behind my parents' house, right here on Mano A Mano, followed by, maybe we'll even we'll do a couple in between just so we're not listening to the same thing twice. But it's an amazing comparison to make. I would suggest going out and checking out that track by Giraffes. Thanks for listening, Mono Amigos. Here we go, right here on Mano A Mano.